Technically live now.
Okay. Let's see what's up.
Do you want me to do the intro, or do you want me to do it this week?
You take it.
Okay.
Do you have a link?
Yeah, I need it.
I just sent it to you through Skype.
Oh, Skype. I bet they all heard that. Oh, you might disappear for a little bit. Maybe not. Whoa.
How you doing, Rob? Good to see you too. Tough week. I'm sorry to hear that. Been there, but hopefully we can, bring you a little Star Trek distraction. I'm good. It's the weekend. I'm happy to be not sitting at work and hanging out here with you guys.
Yeah, I'm okay. I wish the weather would cooperate, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll see some sun soon.
It's been raining here too. We're on opposite sides of the country and we got the same weather.
Yep.
Cloudy, rainy. And so Dan, I guess before we totally kick this off, I'm dying to hear what your initial thoughts on beginning of Enterprise are, your second time around.
They're good actually. I've been really enjoying these first string of episodes.
Good.
Finished
You're not just saying that because I'm here, right?
No, I'm not. I'm not just saying that. I finished Voyager rather quickly, and that kind of tends to happen. Especially at the beginning and the ends of Star Trek series, I just tend to ramp up and blow through it. So that's why I'm on episode 8 of Enterprise. Yeah. Some of the episodes that I like are Strange New World. This is for Enterprise.
Yep.
Strange New World, Unexpected. And so those are kind of the two that are kind of my favorites so far. I'm halfway through Civilization right now. But yeah, I really liked. I don't know. Unexpected made me laugh, and I love episodes with Trip. Um, so that's kind of why I picked it.
Cool. Yeah. I really like Strange New World a lot.
Yeah.
And Unexpected's not a huge favorite of mine, but I kind of knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Because it's got a good sense of humor to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, I guess, Trip's first big showcase.
And then let's see. Some of the stuff I noticed, there's kind of like some, I don't know, a lot of like, I don't know, just things I noticed as far as like, it gets kind of hot and steamy in some places, like, you know,
Yeah.
and detox and stuff like that.
Yeah, trying to push the envelope there a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm guessing just because kind of starting off the series. But what I also liked about the beginning, especially the first couple episodes, it's like space is kind of this big, scary place, like that's kind of frightening and eerie.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think the first, especially the very beginning of Enterprise, really kind of lays that out pretty well. Coming off of the 24th century shows where space doesn't always feel big and scary. You know, they kind of conquered it to a certain degree. It's old hat to those crews.
Yeah.
But I think it really does convey that sense of, wow, we're out here. And we really don't know what's going to be around every corner.
And I think they do a good job of conveying the excitement
yeah.
about the crew wanting to get out there and stuff like that. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I wish they would have, kind of similar to how I feel about the beginning of Voyager. I think the very beginning of Voyager does a pretty good job of, you know, focusing in on these are two different crews. They don't all come from the same place. They have different goals, different, you know, reasons for being where they are. And I think it kind of fades a little quickly. And I think Enterprise kind of goes through the same thing with that. I think that sense of real excitement, real fear on some people's parts, maybe goes away a little quicker than I would have liked. But it's certainly there in the first chunk of the first season. And it's really refreshing to me when I watch it. It's got a different vibe than really any of the shows at the beginning there.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely interested to see how you feel as it goes on. You know,
yeah, time will tell of how I start. You know, it's I don't know. I like that they're already kind of introducing T'Pol and Trip, especially with in the Breaking the Ice episode.
Yeah.
So
that kind of lays the initial kind of groundwork for
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's cool, Rob. You're saying that you're going to start Enterprise next week. Definitely, I'd love to see you post on Twitter as you go. Maybe not necessarily every single episode. I know that's a lot of work, but
yeah,
you know,
definitely keep us up to date because we're definitely eager to, you know, hear what you think. So
yeah, I love anybody doing that as they go. You know, there are a handful of Twitter accounts that do a really good job of it, and you know, tweeting as they go. You know, some are more detailed and more, you know, step by step than others. But it's really fun to hear, you know, people's experiences as they go through it. I love all the shows and seeing those opinions for all the shows, but Enterprise in particular really interests me to see, you know, people's reactions as they're diving in, especially people who are either new to it or aren't real experienced with it, trying to take a new, you know, fresh set of eyes on it.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, so kind of like what Dan's doing. definitely of interest to me for sure.
Yeah, I hope you'll find that if you start doing that, it'll I don't know, you'll get more people involved and you hear different perspectives and stuff like that. So it's a really
Hmm.
it's a really I don't know, rewarding thing to do for sure.
It is definitely.
Hmm.
I think you'll be surprised at the people who respond. People are listening. People want to hear that stuff.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's a great way to start a conversation.
Hmm.
You want to kick this off, Dan?
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Welcome to episode 8 of Trek Live. We are back in uniform and ready for a live Star Trek discussion. With me, as always, is Bill. What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about the various Star Trek finales, the series finale for each show. Kind of compare, contrast. What's good, what's not. I guess we're going to talk a little bit about TV finales in general, how Star Trek kind of fits into the history of, I guess, TV finales, or as we see it.
Mhm.
But anybody who's here live, we're interested to hear your takes on these episodes and these shows as a whole as they were wrapping up. Some of these go beyond, just one episode. It's kind of hard to talk about, say, Deep Space Nine's strict finale without talking about the end of that show as a whole. Voyager's the whole discussion unto itself. So, whatever you guys have in mind as we're kind of going through these, share, let us know. We'll be happy to interact and make it a conversation that's wider than just me and Dan, like we always try to do. So.
Yeah, and just know, guys, that there's probably going to be some spoilers.
Yes.
So definitely be aware of that. And also, like, for this week, I don't know, it just kind of happened. But I don't know what Bill's going to say, and he doesn't know what I'm going to say because we didn't really do like a pre-show and kind of talk about it. We're just going to go into it kind of wide open, and we're excited to hear from you guys, and I'm excited to hear what Bill has to say about all the finales. So
yeah,
should be a
we
good
did
show.
not talk about this much, so
No.
I'm eager to hear from Dan. I'm eager to hear from all of you. So definitely exciting. But yeah, please, I know I'm going to try my best to avoid getting into like extreme detail spoiler territory with some of these because I know some people haven't, gotten all the way through Deep Space Nine yet or haven't seen the end of Enterprise. But it's kind of hard. This topic is what it is. So if you're afraid of any discussion, maybe be selective with what you watch with us today, this week. So, yep. So Dan, I think we're going to start with TOS, which is kind of an interesting conversation.
And I've got
When I say TOS finale, what do you think of? Do you think of Turnabout Intruder, or
I think of Undiscovered.
Six?
Yeah, I think of Undiscovered Country. I think it's way more of a finale than Turnabout Intruder. I feel like Turnabout Intruder just feels kind of out of place. But yeah, Undiscovered Country is kind of the true ending to that TOS crew because I mean I love Undiscovered Country. I think not just kind of like the salute to the crew, but also just the movie in general. But I think I don't know. When I think of TOS finale, I think of Undiscovered Country. What about you?
Me too. Tournament Intruder is kind of just an episode that happened to be the one that was last in a run. It doesn't wrap anything up. It's not a finale in any real way, and it's not really a good episode either. So I don't think of it at all as a finale. But the Undiscovered Country for sure is kind of the perfect, to me, ending for TOS. It's about the Cold War. It's about the Cold War ending. It was timely in 1991 when it came out. I think it's kind of perfectly fitting that TOS ends with, the ending of the Cold War, and it's about the peace process. I think it's relevant now.
Oh yeah.
It's about being afraid of, obviously, taking wars right out of the movie, but being afraid of change and the course of history and trying to push back against the kind of the way history is going.
Mhm.
The future is on its track. Um, so I think it's perfect for TOS to end that way. I love that it. Not only that, I kind of talked about this in a recent stream. I don't remember which one, but it really kind of takes advantage of the fact that these characters are aging and are older. Um, they're coming at it from a perspective of people at the end of their career. So it really is a true finale. We see some of these characters again later, either in Generations or in, at least chronologically, like you see Scotty in Relics and TNG, and you see
Yeah.
Spock in Unification and in the new movies.
Yeah.
But this is the true kind of wrap up of the original series characters as a family, as a crew, as a series. So, 6 is pretty high up on my list of Star Trek movies in general. I know there are some who kind of find it to be overrated. I've heard, I know people who've been in the stream in the past.
Mhm.
I know Enterprise Extra is not a huge fan. I know Ian's not a huge fan. So there are people that we've interacted with in the past who resist it, but I'm totally on board with it. I think it's a perfect swan song for those characters, those actors.
Yeah, it's kind of like a perfect warping off into the sunset for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah. So I don't have a whole lot new to say about Star Trek 6 that hasn't already been said a million
Yeah,
times.
same here.
Um, and I think on another note, one of the things that we've talked about privately is we want to really take deep dives into, the movies, kind of one at a time here and there as we go
Mhm.
forward in this show. So I don't want to get too detailed on Star Trek 6 because I kind of want to save that topic for another day.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I'll just leave it at. I think it's a perfect way. I think it was the perfect way for TOS to end on a note that was kind of consistently a theme throughout the series. The relations with the Klingons as it related to the relations with the Soviet Union and the United States.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, looks like Rob's giving some love to Undiscovered Country. Yeah, it is emotional. That is an emotional scene.
It is.
Yeah.
It's really poignant. It's really well done. It's
Mhm. Yeah.
it feels final for sure. Like
Yeah.
they really achieved that all through the movie. Because it's a
Mhm.
theme that these guys are retiring. They're at the end of their career. Like I
Yeah.
said, it really plays up the fact that this is the end for these characters as we know them, as we've grown to know them,
Mhm.
being together, on adventures. That's coming to an end, and the movie's about that.
Mhm.
So it does have Odo and Cisco's dad, Rob. They are both in it, correct? Rob also says he's never seen Turnabout Intruder, which I'd be interested to hear your take on. I think you
Yeah.
should watch it. Report back.
Yeah.
So, what about TNG? Kind of a similar thing, All Good Things, I think, is universally rightfully so, and we're going to talk a lot about that, I'm sure. It's seen as the finale for TNG, but similar to TOS, there's also Nemesis hanging out there, which is, yet another ending for
Yeah.
TNG. But I guess let's talk about All Good Things first. What do you think of when we talk about All Good Things?
I don't know. I don't. It's tough because Nemesis. I don't really like Nemesis that much. So
Does anybody?
I kind of choose to see that All Good Things is kind of the ending for this crew. Um, I feel like All Good Things has it all.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of culmination of 7 years of kind of ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
Just talking about just the episode in general. I feel like it has it all. It has like a sci-fi type of feel.
It does.
Yes, Q.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like watching it, it kind of like, I don't know, made me think. It was kind of a deeper feeling, especially about, humanity and stuff like that. And it was kind of weird just kind of remembering back, because I tried to remember back because I haven't seen it in a while. I was like, okay, how was season 7? Season 7 to me was kind of subpar.
It was.
And then out of nowhere, they're just like, oh, we're just going to leave this here. This great episode that I love. It's just so perfect. You can see kind of, it's so like everyone kind of comes together and you can see, where they've been and to where they are now, which is, I don't know, that's the mark of a good finale, I guess. So that's why I loved All Good Things.
Yeah. All Good Things is my favorite, and I think it has kind of the most unique challenge of any of them. All Good Things had to be a satisfying wrap up to the series proper, but it also had its hands tied in a sense because they knew that they had a movie coming out in 6 months or whatever from the time that episode was going to air.
Yeah.
So they couldn't do anything too final. They couldn't change the status quo. They couldn't send characters off in different directions. They couldn't kill anybody. They weren't going to be able to do anything huge to sort of shake, everything up.
Yeah.
They couldn't do anything earth-shattering.
Mm-hmm.
But they did have to do something that was grander than usual and wrap up the show to at least some extent,
mm-hmm.
but not an ending. It couldn't be a firm ending for this group of people. So I think that challenge is pretty tough. And the other thing that really comes to mind when I think about it is when I watch TNG, the first season it feels like forever ago by the time you get to the end of it
mm-hmm.
because the show changes so much.
Yeah.
In its look, in its tone, season 1 of TNG is a really unique animal. It feels like its own thing. It almost feels like its own show.
Yeah.
And for All Good Things to be really far removed, like almost nobody who was working on the show when Encounter at Farpoint was being produced was left, at least in the writing part of it. There were no writers in that room coming up with that episode that had anything to do with Encounter at Farpoint. So to harken back to that the way that it did and wrap everything up by coming full circle with humanity being on trial with Q and being about the future of humanity,
mm-hmm.
the way that Encounter at Farpoint was kind of a bold move. And I appreciate that they didn't forget. In their minds, the show didn't start when they got there, like
mm-hmm.
in the 3rd, 4th season. They went all the way back to before they were involved and really brought the show back full circle. And I definitely really appreciate that. I think that had to be. I wasn't old enough to remember it well. I wasn't that conscious of it when it was on
mm-hmm.
initially, but it had to surprise people to see them go back all the way to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't know that that's what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So, like you had said, to me, it's got this really cool science fiction kind of force driving it with Picard bouncing around through time
mm-hmm.
and seeing his crew and all these different in 3 different points in their lives, the beginning, the middle, where they are now, and then years down the road where, and I love that in the future, as All Good Things sees it, time hasn't been kind to this group of people necessarily. None of them are really happy.
Yeah.
And I love that it ultimately ends up being about, them getting a peek at that and really wanting to work to not let that happen.
mm-hmm.
Things happen evidently in that timeline after All Good Things that drive these people apart. The Worf, Troy, kind of weird romance drives a stake between Riker and Troy and causes people to go their separate ways. And I love that it's about where these people are headed and so and I like that Picard it kind of goes against type at the end tells, you don't see him telling them, but they talk about that he told them what he saw
Yeah.
and reasons it as it's just one possible outcome. And he's telling them because he doesn't want it to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to make sure that the cards are on the table and that that's not what happens. You know, that kind of tells you how much he loves this group of people. Like, that's his family, and he's not going to let that happen. He's not going to let them be driven apart and have things play out the way that they did, the way he saw it. So given the challenge that they had with, you know, having to wrap it up, having to be a final episode for the series, but not, you know, change the game to the point where the movies couldn't do what they were going to do, I think it was a kind of a slam dunk home run. And it's my favorite of the finales. It's one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek in general.
Yeah.
It's really sweeping. It's cinematic. It's emotional. It's got the science fiction element to it. It's kind of got it all.
It's got it all, yeah.
It's got everything that hallmark Star Trek kind of does. When Star Trek works at its best, you know, The City on the Edge of Forever, Yesterday's Enterprise, episodes like that, they have all those things working for it, and this one does too. So,
yep.
And I guess we could talk briefly. Again, I don't want to get too much into it, but, you know, how do you feel about the way Nemesis wrapped up The Next Generation in its way, you know?
I didn't particularly like how they, I don't know. I guess by Nemesis, I felt like that whole thing just felt really tired and felt really rushed, and they're just trying to squeeze every last ounce of Star Trek Next Generation they could out of it. So I don't know. What are your kind of thoughts on Nemesis?
Tired is the good word. I think is the best word. It just feels, it feels tired. It feels labored. It feels like it's every inch of that movie is a struggle to make it come to life and, you know, push it forward. It kind of just lays there to me. It doesn't feel like TNG.
Yeah.
Really, it doesn't feel like TNG at its best. I think it tries a little hard to mirror the Wrath of Khan. I don't think the way that they ended Data's character was dramatically interesting. I think it's kind of, you know, and I think they took a really easy cop out with.
Yeah, and I want to touch on that on the other series finales, or not series finales, but other series. Rob says his only favorite, the only thing he liked about Nemesis was the Janeway cameo.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I guess think of when I think of Nemesis.
Yeah.
You know, I do like the fact that she kind of pokes her head in. Beyond that, there's not a whole lot that I like about Nemesis. I hate to say that. I don't like to be like super negative about anything. It's got some moments in the battle scene towards the end. I think there's some cool stuff in that. I think the very opening scene in the Romulan Senate is kind of cool. But I think some of the worst stuff ever in Star Trek is in that. I think the Dune buggy, like the Argo scene, is totally out of place.
Yeah.
It just does not feel like Star Trek at all to me. It's kind of gratuitous action. It feels so plugged in just to, you know, have an action scene in that part of the movie. Like, it's just so transparently that's what that is.
Insert action scene here in the scripts.
Yeah, it really is. So I'm not a fan of that at all. I think the movie comes to a screeching halt around that point, and it's just got this feeling of being tired. I think that was the perfect word. It's just a slog to get through. It's really rough, and it's a shame that TNG kind of ends with that taste in its mouth, or it ends for me with that taste in my mouth, I guess I should say. All Good Things is the far superior finale for, you know, TNG. The movies are kind of bonuses at the end. For me. Glad we got what we got, I guess.
Yeah.
So I guess moving into Deep Space Nine, What You Leave Behind.
Yep.
What do you think?
I liked it. I think they had a tough job because it was, it was very serialized, and there was a lot of. It was a really tough job to do. I thought it was a very emotional. Just thinking back, like it was a very emotional finale.
Yeah.
Kind of especially at the end with Jake and Kira, but
Yeah.
the reason why I kind of liked it is because I was so like emotionally invested. Like I was just kind of glued to it. But just at the end, it was just like I don't know. It was just you were almost like emotionally exhausted and kind of
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. At the same time, I didn't know what to think. It was just um, yeah. So I liked it, but they had a tough job for sure.
It was a tough job. There's so many balls in the air for Deep Space Nine, so many characters, so many story threads.
Yeah.
Um, and I think what you're getting at there, if I'm not trying to put words in your mouth or anything, but this feeling of like kind of being emotionally exhausted and not really knowing what to think.
Yeah.
I think
Exactly.
some of that comes from, and I feel the same thing when I watch Deep Space Nine at the end. And I think part of it is it's very final in a lot of ways. They kind of knew that this was it. They weren't going to have movies, following this up. That was highly unlikely. So they felt the dramatic, they felt the creative license to really wrap things up. But there are elements of it that are kind of left hanging a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, what's up with Cisco? Like, what's his status?
Yeah.
Is kind of very nebulous and could go any way. And there's
He's somewhere playing a piano somewhere.
he's somewhere
Yeah.
playing a piano, singing jazz music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
I hope he's happy. But
Yeah.
there was an opportunity for more. They certainly left meat on the bone for further storytelling, and I know the novels get into all that, and so it's this weird mix of it's very final. The characters are going off, they're leaving, they're going to their own thing, but there's more there. Like not ready for it to end yet is kind of my feeling all the time whenever I go back to it. And it in a sense it is a tougher job than a lot of these other shows had because of how many story threads and how many things it had to wrap up. But in another way, if you look at it the other way around, it had the benefit of because it was so serialized, especially at the end. It's what you leave behind. The finale is the final part of like a 9-part arc of episodes. So it had a lot of build up. They were really building to that, and it got a running start where some of these other shows didn't. And I think the show we're going to talk about next could have used a running start, and kind of, I think this kind of take that Deep Space Nine took would have been helpful for that show. But its challenge was different. It had its own unique set of things that it had to do. It had to wrap it up finally, but it had the benefit of what you leave behind is the finale. But the real finale, I guess, of Deep Space Nine is the 9 hours of episodes that kind of string together to lead to that point.
Yeah.
Because it feels like they always used to call it. And I remember like in the promos when that was getting ready to come on, that run of episodes, it was called the final chapter, and it feels like chapters in a book. Those 9 episodes, they really are like one story.
Yeah. So I guess
so it had that benefit.
Yeah, and it's like hard to talk about kind of the finale without kind of those string of episodes, because I think it does. Yeah, like you said, it is like a book. It's like it would be like us just talking about like a last chapter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or the last page. It's just tough.
Quite a few of those characters had arcs that are like they're the culmination of those characters come throughout those 9 episodes. It's not all just happening in the last 2 hours. Odo's journey in those last 9 episodes is a journey through those 9 episodes. What happens to him in the finale, the choices he makes are not easily boiled down to, okay, this happens here in this episode. It's a bigger thing than that.
Yeah.
And that's a benefit that DS9 enjoyed by its very nature. By choosing early on to have that style of bigger storylines, more serialized storytelling.
Yeah.
It got to capitalize on that at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Rob's talking about a couple things here. Rob loves that they brought back kind of the original villains.
Yeah.
You know, Kai Wynn, and Dukat, you know, are kind of right there at the end. And I agree. You know, I like the fact that they kind of bring it all down at the very end. You know, they finish out the war. And, like, I don't want to get into too many spoilers here, but it basically ends with, you know, Cisco and Dukat mano a mano, which is the way you would kind of hope it would end.
Yeah.
I guess if you're in early DS9, that's where you kind of see it going. And
Yeah.
it does kind of go there. The Garrick and Wayoon last scene, yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Garrick and Bashir's last scene is great.
Yeah.
There's so many good things in that. I really love the way Deep Space Nine ends. But it's a certainly bigger conversation than what you leave behind does. I love what you said, Dan, about the very last shot with Kira and Jake. That is seared into my head. I think that's one of scenes in Star Trek. You know, that's a really memorable moment.
And it kind of, I don't know, that kind of scene to me kind of ties back to this beginning, because it was like, you know, Kira was this like freedom fighter, but now she's kind of moved into a position where she's, I don't know, she just started at one point and then now she's ended here, and it's just like kind of awesome to see that. So
it really her arc is really hitting home there. You know, you're seeing how far she's come, for sure. All those characters, and we've talked about before. You know, Deep Space Nine. You know, it starts out as this, you know, ragtag group of people who really don't want to be there. Nobody really wants to be in that, you know, in that situation, in those jobs. But by the end, they do have like a distinct, you know, familial feel. And when they're breaking up and they're all going in their opposite directions, in their different directions, you know, Worf is doing what he's doing, and you know, I keep catching myself. I don't want to get too spoilery, because I know there are people who are hoping to watch this at some point who have not finished Deep Space Nine yet, so I don't want to get too far into it. But there's a real sense of finality, and seeing the characters do what they do is emotional, because of how far they've come, because of where they started, and I think it's really well done. I just it's a really distinct arc. It begins here and ends there. There's a real journey that these characters go on. So it's satisfying. It's up there. It's not. I don't quite rank it in the same echelon as All Good Things, but I would certainly say, I don't know. It's I think I have it higher than Star Trek 6 on my overall rankings that I talk about a lot on Twitter. But it's kind of an unfair comparison. Star Trek 6 is a kind of its own animal as a feature film. But it's up there. It's in the good category, squarely in the good category.
Yes, it is. Yep.
So kind of moving into the one you just watched, Endgame with Voyager.
Yeah, this is the point where I start to get fired up and frustrated. So
I'm going to sit back and listen.
Oh, Voyager. To me, Endgame feels like a cop-out, for sure. I mean, it just feels so out of place and so just out of left field. I feel like, especially with Janeway, like I'm gonna focus on Janeway for a second. It's like I feel like it's kind of like a video game to her. Oh, she didn't like the outcome of what happened, so she's just gonna go press the reset button or change this and cheat here. It just feels like, and I don't know. And this is not kind of focused on Endgame, but I guess just ending the series in general. I wish they would have got home even an episode or two before, and just to see. Endgame is like the epitome of Voyager, because Voyager, I just think, was just a missed opportunity. I think, especially with Endgame, I feel like they could have done a lot more with the ending and stuff like that. And it just felt like you know, just the easy way out. They were tired. They just wanted to be done with it. It just felt like kind of the easy way out. And that makes me mad when people take the easy way out because if they were gonna do it, they should have done it right. And that frustrates me to no end. But um, yeah, it just feels too easy. Feels like a cop out. It's very frustrating for sure.
Yeah, I think I think Voyager would have really benefited from kind of taking the same approach that Deep Space Nine was able to take. You know, in a perfect world, I think Voyager gets home with maybe 6 episodes to go. Um, you know, there's so much dramatic potential for an exploration of how these characters deal with being home. You know,
Hmm.
it's and again, Voyager's about the journey. You know, they're pretty clear about that, and that was
Yeah.
their defense for taking the approach that they took. It's about the journey more than it's about the result, I guess, the destination. Um, but there's so many questions about, you know, I would love to see Janeway's debriefing coming home from that. You know, I would love like, what happens to Chakotay and B'Elanna and
Yeah, the
Maquis.
Mucky. Yeah.
You know, Maquis are wiped out in the Alpha Quadrant from the Dominion,
Hmm.
and so they're like the only ones that are left. So how does the Federation, how does Starfleet deal with that? Do they just let them go, or like
Hmm.
do they you know, there has to be something there. There's something to be done there. You know, what happens to the Doctor and Seven? Both of them are totally out
Hmm.
of their element now.
Yeah.
You know, even Naomi Wildman and Icheb, like what happens to them? They're totally out of their element now. The only thing
Yeah.
they know is Voyager and the circumstances they've been in since they've been, you know, either alive in Naomi's case or, you know, a conscious, you know, person like Icheb. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Tom and his dad and Tom
Tom
B'Elanna and the
Blunt.
baby.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, there's so many things that I think could have benefited from just a handful of episodes. I know I'm saying 6, but you know, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
something, just something
Exactly.
to let things play out a little bit. And I think it would really change the way a lot of people think of Voyager. I think that finale really hurt Voyager. Voyager got a lot of flack while it was on for not being serialized enough, and you know we've talked about this in other streams, and
Hmm.
I kind of push back against some of that. You know, it is what it is. It was a product of its time, and for my money, it's a good show. It's a really good show, and I love it. But I think a lot of those things would have been forgiven by a lot of people if they were able to take advantage of these storylines really resolving themselves. You know, about what happens when they get home. You know, to me, you know, I think of things the way I think of it is like getting home should have been the easy part. You know, like now that they're home, there's a whole other set of challenges
Yeah. It's
that
like a whole new
are more
journey for
dramatically
them.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where the real drama would have been for me. You know, that's what I was really interested in seeing. You know, what happens to these characters now that they're not out there on their own. Um, so when I think of Endgame, I think it's a big missed opportunity. Um, I think I do. I like it. I enjoy it for its own merit, I guess. You know, for what Voyager was, just like what you leave behind, kind of ends with Sisko and Dukat going mano a mano. You know, Janeway and the Borg Queen going mano a mano at the end. Yeah, that, I guess makes sense given what Voyager was up to
Yeah.
that point. Um, and I think it has some really good moments in it. I love the scenes in the future with Tuvok dealing with his illness and um,
Yeah. You still kind of get that family feeling, for
yeah.
sure, when they're trying to stay connected and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love
And
that too.
I think what you were kind of touching on there too was, you know, Janeway deciding because she didn't like the way that things played out, she was going to change history. You know, it's kind of similar to what I was just talking about with Picard in All Good Things. You know, he makes a decision at the end of All Good Things to tell the crew the way things were headed. I think from a place, like I said, of not wanting things to end there. But I think that's a very different thing
Yeah, because she.
than than what Janeway does. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, Janeway makes a decision to change history, and there's something profound about that, I guess. But like, she cares about these people so much that that's what she's willing to do.
Yeah, I kind of got the feeling like, I don't know, like being kind of battle hardened in the Delta Quadrant kind of changed her. But I feel like her character is so stubborn that I feel like that part of her wouldn't have changed that drastically.
Yeah, she's so to me, Janeway's so about the Federation ideals, you know,
Yeah.
the principles. Like, she's so principled and so uncompromising about those principles.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's what they try to sell throughout Voyager. That's what they try to define Janeway as. She's not willing to compromise on these hard beliefs that she's held on to.
Mm-hmm.
And in her mind, the reason they are where they are, and they're not stranded on some planet, or, you know, not dead in the Delta Quadrant, not left, you know, not they were able to get to where they were getting because of those principles. You know?
Mm-hmm.
She thinks that those Starfleet principles are solid to the point where they're going to help them get home.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's kind of abrupt and not necessarily. I don't think they tell us enough about why she's there, why she gets there. Like, they try to, I guess, similar to All Good Things, they're I guess trying to make a point that it didn't end well. Like, things didn't go the way that she wanted them to go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a happy ending for enough people. Like, they, you know, I guess the big one was, you know, by taking so long to get home, Tuvok was too far gone, so he was basically done.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so they I just don't think it's really well sold. I don't think they do a good enough job of telling us why Janeway is willing to go to this far of an extent to change history and go back on everything she's told us she's been about for the last 7 years
Mm-hmm.
to make that happen. So I struggle with that, and I'd be lying if I said that my biggest struggle with it is about, you know, the missed opportunity of what it didn't give me what I really wanted to see at the end of Voyager. I wanted to see what happened to Chakotay and B'Elanna and all the other Maquis. And how do you deal with the Doctor being a hologram? And like, how does Starfleet, you know, see that? Like, what do they do?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like especially with, like, they had other opportunities to get them home.
mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of am frustrated that they went the Borg route and kind of time travel route.
Yeah.
Because I mean, they had the caretaker. There's another caretaker out there somewhere in the universe. You know, maybe they find. You know, I don't know. I don't want to play what ifs, but it's just it's frustrating for sure.
Yeah, it's. I think you put it. I think you didn't. You say they kind of took the easy way.
Yes, the easy way out.
They took everything that you kind of would expect on a drawing board, like the easy. This is the way we're going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, the Borg, time travel, all the things that, you know, Voyager built a reputation for being about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they did. You know, and I guess you can defend it by saying that's what Voyager was.
Yeah.
You know, that's the show that they were making. And, you know, these criticisms that we have are coming from a place of what we wish Voyager would
Yeah.
do. Like, what, you know, for me especially, you know, this extended ending of, you know, seeing how these things play out. Maybe it's not consistent with what the people writing the show saw the show as, but, you know, I can't help it.
Yeah, since
I'm gonna watch the season of that. You know?
Yeah. Since Adam Nimoy is making a documentary about Deep Space Nine, can he also make one about Voyager and how much they?
There's a lot of interesting stuff there.
I would love to hear from the cast. I would love to hear from, I don't know,
people who are writing it,
creators and stuff like that.
And real quick, the last thing I guess I'll talk about with Endgame, that curious to hear your take on, is another episode that you watched fairly recently was Human Error, and it's about, you know, Seven kind of discovering that these emotions, you know, chasing, you know, the white rabbit of wanting to be as human as possible was doing her harm. You know, it's causing her medical issues to pursue this. Um, Brannon Braga was not super involved with Voyager at the end, but he did help write that episode, and he was trying to tee up, in his mind, the way Voyager should have ended would have been, I don't know the whole detail, but in his mind, Seven of Nine should have laid down her life to let the crew get home, and it should have been tied to the fact that she can't keep going the way she wants to go. Like, if she can't be more human, if she can't explore the emotions that are allowing her to feel more human, she's going to lay her life down to let these people get home when the opportunity presents itself. That's where he wanted to go. But he wasn't. He was off developing Enterprise at the time, so he wasn't involved with the day-to-day operation of the show and didn't write the finale. So, he teed it up, but they didn't take the swing and do it.
Yeah, see, to me that I feel like is a better use. Like
Mhm.
I'll touch on this about the show we are going to talk about next about people dying, but it's gotta be you gotta walk that fine line where sometimes it can be a useful tool, but other times it's just pointless and it needs a way out. So
Exactly.
I would
And to
have
me, I think
it would be a
if
tough pill for me to swallow, but I feel like that would have been a little bit better just because the way it was set up.
yeah,
Because from looking at it now, it's frustrating now because like you wanted her to see development. You want her to either develop past where she can, have feelings, I guess, or kind of revert and then, you know, bite the dust. But I feel like I don't know. She just feels stagnant at the end,
hmm
like she was building and then nothing.
yeah,
It was tough.
you don't see the payoff.
Yeah.
It kind of leaves you hanging with no real emotional payoff for most of the characters.
Hmm.
And that's the most frustrating thing to me. I think the strength of Voyager is actually its characters. I really, the more I go back to it, the more I find myself loving all these characters,
Hmm.
especially later on, as they're really developed and this family aspect really is hit home and it feels earned and, it's comfortable. Like, I think that was the show's best asset. It was these characters, the actors playing them. And I think they kind of swung and missed on landing real emotional um, resolutions for these characters the way Deep Space Nine kind of
Hmm.
achieved them. So it's kind of where I am
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah.
But for what it is, I enjoy it well enough, without thinking too much about if I detach myself from what I wish it was and what I wish it could have been, it's an entertaining enough 90 minutes for me.
Yeah.
On its own merits. There's cool.
Hmm.
It looks cool. There's a lot of really good visual stuff going on with the effects, and it's a big production. It
Yeah.
feels
Big
big.
production value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fast paced. It's it's good. It's good Star Trek Voyager, especially. It's got all the things that Voyager consistently does well. It
Hmm.
looks good. It's well produced. It's it's sleek. The actors are kicking butt. They're all good. But it's tough to detach from the what if.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I guess our last thing to talk about here is these are the voyages from Enterprise, which is quite an animal.
Yeah.
What's your initial? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what are your overall impressions?
Um. So I apologize. I haven't seen it in a long time, so this is just kind of what I remember um, from a long time. But I like the ending with Archer and T'Pol. Like it kind of feels, I don't know. You can kind of feel that they have a sense of connection, and I kind of like that.
Yeah,
Especially because kind of there was kind of just like an underlying theme of the kind of relationship with Vulcan and how they've kind of been involved with humanity and stuff like that. So I like that they almost kind of come full circle in that aspect.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one thing about it that I like.
yeah.
Mhm.
um,
Those scenes are what work for me.
yep.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and then I guess kind of going into stuff that I don't like about it. Trip's death, obviously. I I don't know. I don't understand why filmmakers do that because it feels too easy to like, oh, that's just an easy way to create emotion and stuff like that. I don't think it's necessary here. It just feels so wrong. And he was like arguably he is my favorite Enterprise character, so it was
Yeah.
just frustrating. And that kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth for the rest. So, and the thing is really frustrating is, especially watching these early episodes, it's like the cast doesn't deserve an ending like this.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know. Just seeing these first couple episodes, I'm like, these actors kind of genuinely cared and kind of put their best foot forward in the show.
Yeah.
And especially, I start to actually care about this cast, and then they get that type of ending with, the guest stars that are in um, uh, kind of these other voyages. I don't
Uh-huh.
know. What are your take?
Yeah.
What's your take on it?
It's it's really bad. I try to find the silver lining in a lot of things, but in a lot of things that are Star Trek. But it's to me it fails on pretty much every level. It's what you touched on. When I think of These Are the Voyages, and I try to come up with something positive. It's a few of the scenes with Archer and T'Pol,
Mm-hmm.
particularly at the end, are
Yep.
kind of touching and they make sense. It is nice to see them come completely full circle. And like you said, it's a the relationship between not just Archer and T'Pol, but humanity and the Vulcans is a huge driving force behind that show. And
Mm-hmm.
that little moment at the end where she kind of straightens his tie before he goes to make his speech that we don't see um, is nice. It's a nice moment. But beyond that, when I watch it, I don't tend to watch it like I talked about in the last stream, and I think Trek After Dark, which we did earlier in the week. I have a hard time watching Star Trek in like random, plots. For me, I have to watch it like I have to do it all. I have to do it in like big rewatches. That's my, I guess, bugaboo. I struggle to do anything beyond that. So when I watch it, when I finish Enterprise, and I watch Enterprise first, I don't watch that until the Pegasus, which is the episode that it kind of takes place during in TNG. So when I finish Enterprise, I finish with the two-parter that happens right before it, Demons and Terra Prime, and then I go right into TOS and I table These Are the Voyages until I'm into TNG.
Yeah.
And to me, I do that for a couple of reasons. I do it because it's too hard to watch it on the heels of what is otherwise a really good ending for me. Like Enterprise, I think ends on a high note. Other than that episode, season 4 is really strong. It ends really strong. The Demons and Terra Prime, I think, are fantastic. And it's really obviously written by people, Rick Berman and Brannon Braga, who had nothing to do with season 4, which they didn't. They basically left it to Manny Coto, who was the executive producer for the 4th season and majorly involved in season 3 as well. They went off and did something else and were kind of out of the day-to-day operation of the show when season 4 was running. And then they swoop in and write the finale because it's their show, which is obviously they can do. It's their baby. They want to finish it. Great. But none of the things that have been developed, particularly between Trip and T'Pol through the 4th season, are there in this episode. It's a jump forward in time, and everything that you've seen through season 4 up to this point is basically forgotten about. Like it doesn't connect. Like nothing about it feels right to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's a total. So when I try to watch it right off the heels of the rest of season 4, it's even worse. Like it's even more jarring to me because it just feels so false. It feels so arbitrarily changed to be quote unquote, dramatically interesting. And I guess it sets up the bogus, worthless, completely meaningless death of Trip to have their relationship, Trip and T'Pol, be kind of like, oh, well, it never really culminated into much, is what they're saying in These Are the Voyages. Shortly after what you last saw, they broke off and they went their own ways, and nothing really ever came of it. So I just hate that. I hate that they took that route, and I think it just feels too disconnected from what was good about season 4 to me.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like its own thing. So I watch it completely removed from Enterprise. I watch it as like a little epilogue that happens down the road, and it's more attached to TNG than it is to Enterprise. But even that doesn't work, because when you watch it with the Pegasus, which is the episode, like I said, that it's kind of taking place during, that doesn't make sense either. When you watch the Pegasus, it's kind of this tight, dramatically, tense, classic episode. It's a great episode of TNG, and in no way in that episode does it feel like there's time for Riker to be goofing off in the holodeck, for hours on end, trying to decide what he's going to do. Like, it's too tight. The episode's too tightly wound. It's too well. There's just not that. It doesn't work. There's not time for that. So when you watch it, no matter when you watch it, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't. Even beyond, Frakes and Marina Sirtis are clearly older than they should be.
Yeah.
And like that, that's fine. Whatever. I'll accept that if it works. If it's good. If it's well done. And it's just not. Like that's like beside the point to me. It's more about it doesn't fit. Like, so not only is it kind of diminishing to Enterprise to end it that way, and to have the finale be more of a TNG episode than an Enterprise episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's diminishing to the episode that they're trying to expand on from TNG, which is a great one. The Pegasus is one of the better ones from the weak season 7 that you kind of alluded to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a disaster.
It is.
There's really nothing good about it. It's the death of Trip is, completely meaningless. Like, there is no build up to it. Like in a like organic. I guess the only thing that would compare to it is Tasha Yar dying in season 1 of TNG.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's better, because the point of that was that it can happen anytime. It's like,
yeah,
it can happen randomly and be out of left field, but that's okay to me. I can forgive that, because it's in season 1. You kind of don't really know her yet. It's very different than at the end of a show, taking basically your most beloved character and just knocking them off for no good reason. They don't. It's easily the worst character death
ever
that Star Trek's ever done. It's completely meaningless. It doesn't help the episode. It doesn't help the character. It doesn't do anything for me at all.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jadzia Dax, but like as with Dax, like you can still have a few episodes kind of rebuild, especially at the end. It's just like, it's tough to swallow for sure.
Yeah, Dax is certainly, at least in that episode, they do things dramatically to kind of tee that up and make it satisfying. They're newly married, they're trying to have a baby, they're struggling to have a baby. There's things in there that make it poignant, at least. Like it's they're not just toying with your emotions to just kill a character. Like they're building something, and I don't know. That feels considerably more earned to me than
Trips. Yeah.
Trips is just a completely arbitrary. We're just going to do this because we think it'll make people sad. We think it'll bring an emotional, catharsis to people. Like, it's just really misguided, really lazy. They were clearly, I think, trying to find an emotional tug to put in this thing, and they landed on the easy way out, like you talked about.
Yeah.
Let's take the most popular character, the one that people relate to, the one that people like the most, and just knock him off. And I'm not opposed to killing him. You know, if you're gonna kill him well. You know, just
Yeah, exactly.
Make it worthwhile. Make him
Yeah.
die for something. Make it dramatically important to the show. Make it something that's, you know, either unexpected or just dramatically dynamic. Something that helps the show, not
just because.
You know, we get boarded and he just dies.
Yeah.
Like it hurts that it hurts it that it's a situation that Enterprise has done. How many times in the course of Enterprise are they boarded by a hostile alien race? You know, they have to fight them off the ship. Like, it happens countless times. It's not like this hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
There's nothing like different about this.
Mm-hmm.
This is just, this time it happens to end that way. It's just terrible. It's just really bad. And I get upset about it because I love that show. And like you were saying, the cast is good. The character, I mean, like that show, I think deserved more than that.
Yeah, they deserve a lot more than what they got. Yeah, I'd love to have, you know, like I said before, you know, get Adam Nimoy on the phone.